Cornwall, a land of cliffs, moorland and ancient stories. A place where the line between the living and the dead feels just a little thinner. From ghostly riders on moonlit roads to spirits said to rise from dark, still waters. These tales have haunted Cornish villages for centuries. And today we return to the southwest for 5 more ghost stories still told in whispers. This is Haunted Cornwall. The ghost of Dozmary Pool, the Lady of the Lake. Bodmin Moor is a place shaped by silence. Miles of wilderness, and in the middle of it, a dark ancient lake, Dozmary Pool. Legend says it's bottomless, and some locals believe something still rises from its depths. According to tradition, a young woman drowned here centuries ago. Some say she fled an abusive home. Others claim she was thrown into the lake, accused of witchcraft. Witnesses describe the same terrifying scene. On perfectly still nights, a pale woman rises from the centre of the water. Her white gown spreads unnaturally across the surface, floating as if it's weightless. She glides, not walks, drifting silently toward the shore. Hikers have heard soft sobbing echo across the pool, and a fisherman once swore she reached out to him, pleading, before sinking straight down, leaving the water perfectly still. Locals say if the mist sits flat on Dozmary after dark, don't look towards the centre. Dozmary Pool is deeply rooted in British myth, said by some to be the true resting place of Excalibur, thrown back into the water by Sir Bedivere. But it also has a darker story. The spirit is often linked to Jan Tregeagle, a cruel 17th century magistrate condemned to eternal torment. Some say the Lady of the Lake is one of his victims, forever drawn to the pool where he was cursed. Others claim she predates Tregeagle entirely, a spirit of the lake itself, older than any written history. The Phantom Coach of Roughtor. Roughtor is the second highest peak in Cornwall, a wild and wind-blasted ridge that has been feared for centuries. But the most disturbing legend is the Phantom Coach, a ghostly carriage drawn by 4 spectral horses, thundering across the granite slopes at impossible speed. Witnesses describe hearing the coach long before they see it, a deep rumbling like distant thunder, and the rattling of iron wheels on rock. The horses appear first, glowing skeletal and silent, followed by a black coach with lanterns that flicker without flame. The coach never slows and never swerves. Locals warn that if it passes through a living person, the cold is so deep it can stop the heart. One shepherd in the 1920s claimed the coach rode straight through him, and the cold was so intense he collapsed, shaking violently. He survived, but he was never the same. He later said, "I didn't feel cold, I felt hollow." Another man in the 1960s swore the coach carried screaming passengers, their hands pressed against the glass, pounding to escape. Others say the coach is empty, but locals still say the same thing. If you're walking Roughtor after dark and hear a rumble in the distance, don't follow it, don't try to rationalise it, and don't stand still. Because the Phantom Coach is still out there, repeating a journey that began centuries ago, and it never slows down for the living. The earliest reports date back to the 1700s, when a local nobleman supposedly made a deal with the devil to ensure his wealth and status. When he died, the devil came to him, arriving in a blazing coach that tore across Bodmin Moor. The coach then disappeared into the night. Ever since, the coach has been seen racing towards Roughtor on stormy evenings as though reenacting the terrible journey. The Howling Hound of Carn Kenidjack. Carn Kenidjack, also known as the Hooting Carn, rises from the Penwith moors like a jagged stone monument to a much older world. The granite tor is steeped in pagan history and surrounded by ancient burial sites, stone circles and forgotten rituals. But what terrifies locals is the black hound, said to wander the area. This is no ordinary animal, a creature that does not belong to any natural world. Those who've seen it describe a creature the size of a pony with glowing red eyes, fur like smoke, and a howl that freezes the blood. Some hear its footsteps padding behind them, but when they turn, nothing is there except the feeling of being watched. People who've encountered the Hound say you can always hear it before you see it. Not a dog's bark, not a wolf's call, but a long, low, unnatural howl, rising slowly until it becomes something closer to a scream, a sound that seems to vibrate through the stones themselves. Walkers often describe the same chilling moment. The moors fall silent, the wind drops, and somewhere out of the heather, something calls back. The howl never echoes like a normal animal. It feels close, too close, even when there's nothing around for miles. The Hound has been blamed for travellers disappearing on the moor and livestock found mutilated without explanation. It's said the creature never attacks unless provoked, but if it follows you home, misfortune will soon follow. One farmer in the 1800s said the creature stood 7 feet tall when rearing up, its breath smelling of soil and rot. A pair of ramblers in the 1980s reported seeing a dark shape following them across the ridge for half an hour, always staying the exact same distance behind, regardless of how fast they walked. And in 2003, a paranormal group setting up equipment near the stone circle captured an audio recording of a howl so deep and distorted that experts said it did not match any known British animal. The group left the site within minutes. Unlike many Cornish spirits, the Hound of Carn Kenidjack is not merely a haunting. It is often seen as an omen. Locals insist if the Hound follows you home, something bad will happen within days. To this day, locals still warn newcomers not to stray too close to Carn Kenidjack after sunset. Folklorists believe the Hound may be linked to guardian spirits, believed to protect sacred sites. Another theory ties it to the wish hounds of the Wild Hunt, spectral dogs said to roam Cornwall searching for lost souls. The cursed miner of Dolcoath. Deep beneath the quiet streets of Camborne lies the skeletal remains of what was once known as the Queen of Cornish Mines. Dolcoath Mine, one of the oldest and richest tin mines in Cornwall for centuries. Thousands of men descended into the darkness, and not all of them made it back. Some say one of them never left at all. Dolcoath Mine was one of the deepest and most dangerous mines in Cornwall. Over its centuries of operation, hundreds of miners died in collapses, floods and explosions. Today, Dolcoath Mine is abandoned, but something still walks its depths. Miners who explored the tunnels after the closure claim to hear footsteps echoing in shafts that had caved in long ago. Others saw a figure with a lamp, a man in a torn mining coat, wandering the dark and vanishing without warning. When they called out, he didn't respond, and when they approached, the man seemed to dissolve, thinning like mist before disappearing entirely. The story begins in the late 1800s, at a time when Dolcoath was drilling deeper than any mine in Europe. Conditions were brutal, sweltering heat, collapsing chambers, and steam engines pounding the earth like a living heartbeat. One evening, during a late shift at the 300 fathom level, a miner disappeared after a violent rock burst, a massive fall of stone triggered by shifting earth. His body was never found. The ground had swallowed him whole. The rest of the ship was abandoned and miners refused to return for days. When they finally did, they reported hearing a sound in the dark. Not the drip of water, not the groan of shifting stone, but breathing. Slow, heavy, ragged, as if someone was still trapped beneath the rubble, struggling for air. Yet no rescue team ever found him. The ghost is believed to be a miner named Thomas Bray, killed in the collapse in the 1800s. His body was never recovered. The company sealed the tunnels and left him entombed underground. Dolcoath mine was notorious for poor safety conditions, and Thomas Bray was a real miner known to have died in a cave-in. Legends grew after the mine's closure, when explorers and historians reported strange voices and lantern light deep in the sealed tunnels. Local folklore says the cursed miner remains trapped underground and not out of malice, but because he never stopped trying to find his way home. Some believe he still wanders the flooded tunnels, lantern in hand, searching for someone to hear him, to see him, to finally help him out of the darkness. The wandering spirit of Saint Senara's Well. In the tiny cliff-top village of Senara, where the wind whistles like a living thing and the sea hammers the rocks far below, stands an ancient church with a legend older than Cornwall itself. Most visitors come to see the famous mermaid carving inside St. Senara's church. But few know that just beyond the boundary of the churchyard lies something far older, far quieter, and far more haunted. St. Senara's Well, also known as Higher Cerrow Well, a medieval holy well long believed to be a place of healing, prophecy, and uneasy spirits. And among those spirits, one stands above all, the wandering woman of St. Senara's Well, a ghost said to appear between the worlds of grief and redemption. The story tells of a young mother living in Senara, sometime in the late 1500s. Her husband was a fisherman, as nearly all men in Senara were, and one stormy night he was swept into sea, never to return. The woman walked the cliffs in grief for days. When villagers told her he would not be coming home, she refused to believe them. She went instead to St. Senara's Well, falling to her knees and begging the saint to bring her husband back. Witnesses claimed her voice cracked the stillness of the valley. "Give him back to me, take anything else, just not him." When no miracle came, something in her spirit broke, and on the 7th night she disappeared. Her body was never found, only her shawl, floating on the well's surface like a torn black cloud. Not long after her disappearance, villagers began reporting strange sightings near the well. A tall woman in a dark shawl drifting silently along the path at sunset. Sometimes she appeared on the cliffs, and sometimes at the edge of the churchyard, but most often at the well itself, standing perfectly still as if staring into the water. Her face is always described the same way, pale, wet, and streaked with something that looks like tears. When approached, she simply fades, dissolving into mist as though she was never there at all. Over the centuries, the ghost transformed from a tragic figure into something far more ominous. Fishermen claim that seeing the woman meant someone in the village would soon be lost to the sea. One family insisted they saw her 3 nights before their son was swept from his boat near Pendower Cove. In 1923, an entire fishing crew reported watching a woman standing ankle deep in the water on the cove shore, just hours before a sudden storm capsized a vessel offshore. Even today, some locals refuse to walk the coastal path after dark, afraid they might meet the wandering spirit and accidentally invoke another tragedy. The most commonly reported phenomenon is sound, a soft shuddering cry carried on the wind. It doesn't echo like a person's voice, it drifts, it rises from the well, and when it fades, the air becomes suddenly colder, as though something has passed right beside you. Today, St. Senara's Well appears peaceful, a moss-covered stone basin surrounded by ancient hedges. But those who live in Senara know better. The woman still walks, still searches, still weeps into the water that once stole everything from her. And if you visit the well at dusk, listen carefully. If you hear soft crying drifting through the valley, you may be closer to her than you think.